All right, so I was up early this morning playing some D2, and I noticed in a couple Discords this article dropped: World of Tanks, Modern Armor, Cold War co-op mode. Let's talk about this, shall we, chat? This isn't quite a patch update, patch notes kind of thing. It's just basic news, just basic overall news. So this is going off about the Cold War co-op mode, and thankfully we actually have Jeff Gregg answering the questions here, game designer Jeff Gregg. So I like to see that. I am very, very happy to see that Jeff Gregg is the one answering this. I'm personally a big fan of Jeff Gregg. I think he's a great dude, and I really hope this article alone and the way that he answers these questions gives me a little bit of hope. Because, for those of you that don't know, I was a huge fan of the Commander mode. Specifically, the Tankers versus Commander competition, which was 7 tankers versus a commander in control of 9 tanks. So I was a huge fan of the game mode. I completed every mission that was in that game mode, and I earned both of the premium tanks that were available, both the FE4202P and the Panzerknacker, right? So this is really, really, really interesting to see. So when it comes out, when the new Cold War game mode comes out, there's going to have 2 modes. It's going to have 15v15 PvP, the standard one that we all know, and it's going to have a 15v15 human versus AI co-op mode. So what does this mean? I've already gone through the article here, so I'm just going to briefly skim over certain parts that don't really need to be talked about. But essentially, it's going to work like the old Commander mode, where you're going to you can platoon up, or you can just randomly launch with, a bunch of random players, and it's going to put you on all of the human players on one team, and then it's going to put all of the AI on the other team. There's a couple different aspects here that are really, really interesting. There is something, though, that I do want to point out, is that they are thinking about, in this article right here, will there be co-op for World War II, right? Jeff Gregg states that they might bring it to the World War II game mode, and they want to see how the ecosystem works for Cold War first before they try to implement it into World War II. I only have a small problem with this, which is, I'm going to be honest, the AI are really dumb. The AI are really, really, really dumb. What do I mean by this? So when I was streaming the Commander mode, the moment you dropped vision, the AI completely drops all aggro off of you. So I want to know how they fixed that, because there's no longer someone commanding them, so they can't overlook the map seeing where fire tracers are coming from. Now the AI is just randomly responding. So I want to see how this works. It would be kind of cool, but I don't think a lot of people in World War II would play it. Because obviously, and the biggest problem that I have with this specifically is, if it does come to World War II, people are gonna play it and get free grinds off of it. They're gonna be able to grind tanks a lot easier, and I mean a lot easier, because the majority of the time, I guarantee you, the human players will win. My concern is that, will people be able to mark tanks in the co-op mode? And that is something that isn't actually addressed here. Is whether or not you can mark tanks or not in the Cold War mode. Though, to be fair, we don't know if we're going to be getting marks as in the same style of marks of excellence that we had in World War II, but I digress. So that's kind of an iffy kind of situation. I don't really know how I feel about it. So going over this, the AI bots. So the AI bot playstyles, right? You'll be playing the same modes as you would in PvP random battles. So you'll play standard mode, encounter, or team destruction, and the bots will do whatever they can to win. If you let them capture your base, they will. If you want to zerg their base, I invite you to try it. They do not like you going right by their base, and they will try to dig you out. They don't mirror your actions. They just use the tanks you use to try and beat you. So this is something that's stated right here. When he says they just use the tanks to try to beat you, Jeff Gregg states here is that whatever the human players pick tank-wise, the enemy team, the AI, will have a complete mirror of those tanks. So, like they said, if there's 15 M1A2 Abrams on the human side, there's going to be 15 M1A2 Abrams on the enemy side. That's very important to keep that in mind. So, they did state, let me see if I can find it here. I believe it's at the very bottom. But basically, essentially, right, co-op mode's going to give you less rewards than if you played PvP, right? Which makes sense, because it'd be super easy to farm co-op mode. It'd be super easy to farm. So, they also stated here that bots are not going to use smoke screens or hole patch kits, because they didn't want it to seem like the AI was healing itself. I could see both sides of the coin here. Like, I can understand a lot of the lesser skilled players who are just trying out the new game mode be like, why is he healing? That's unfair. That's not right. Whereas, in other words, it is a little bit of a shame, because technically it does give you more HP to farm. Because if they heal, they get more HP back. That's more HP for you to farm. But I digress. I can understand that, and I can understand why they don't have smoke screens or hole patch kits. I'm really interested to see how the smoke screens are going to work, especially against AI. Because if it hard screws their targeting system, there may be a lot of strats in co-op to just hard farm to get through the tiers to get to the top of the tiers, right? The Dedente mode, I believe, or the Dedente era, I believe, which is like 1980s, right? So that is really interesting to see. I would like to see in co-op mode, I would really like to see 5-man platoons. I can understand why they don't want 5-man platoons in PvP, but I think specifically for co-op mode, I think that they should give you 5-man platoons. Now, they haven't stated here in this article whether it's going to be 3-man platoons, 5-man platoons, 4-man platoons. They haven't stated any of that. They just stated that you can platoon with people. Another thing that's really interesting is that if you're in a platoon currently, the platoon leader can actually swap you between co-op and PvP without disbanding the platoon, which is really, really cool. Because currently, if you go from World War II to a custom game, or from a custom game to World War II, you completely lose contact with everyone, and then you have to re-invite. This is a nice change, and they're thinking about doing that for World War II to Cold War, and then from Cold War to World War II. So that is a nice little touch. They're also, and Jeff Gregg stated here, what about the future for co-op mode? And I'll just basically summarize this. They stated that if players are wanting a little bit more of a challenge, they may come out with a different challenge style mode. In this paragraph specifically right here. Another thing we can do is 5 humans versus 25 AI tier 10s. Take them on, can you get them? If that's super cool, we could even consider rolling that into PvP as a mode if people like. But we can also play with that and know that we're not screwing with PvP, because, man, I don't even know what that would do to the economy. I'm glad that he stated that. That is very important to state, because 5 tier 10s versus 25 in PvP, little rough. You would definitely have to compensate them in a lot of factors. DPM, HP, mobility. You would have to compensate the 5 players super hard for that. But for PvE, though, for the co-op mode, I really like that. I think for those of you guys that are achievement hunters here, that would be really fun. Win a game as such and such tank as a 5-man versus 25 AI bot, right? That would be super cool, and especially if they allow you to do a 5-man platoon. So it's a 5-man platoon versus 25 tier 10s. That would be super fun. That would actually be so much fun. It reminds me a lot of the commander mode in that regard. And again, I love the commander mode. And they kind of butchered it the second go around. They made the AI feel really really bad to play against. Not in the they're tough, more of the they're too easy to fight. And I think one of the problems what came up with that specifically was the commander HUD was very difficult to understand and control for people that didn't really know. If you want a game that was closely related to Commander, you could play pretty much any other RTS, Halo Wars, Command and Conquer, StarCraft is another great example of this. But I think the best example, in my opinion, which is another tank game that, in my opinion, was very underrated, that I loved to death, was Tom Clancy's End War for the Xbox 360. That is the closest thing to Commander mode that we got, which was really, really cool. But let me go ahead and go on. So, Commander mode, are players going to incur expenses similar to games? Yes, they'll take the exact same expenses that they would have, but they're not going to earn as much from PvE because they suspected that it'd be way easier to farm PvE, so they're dumbing down the rewards for PvE. Now, me personally, I'm going to be going back and forth between PvP and PvE. For example, if I'm just getting hard targeted in PvP games, 5, 6, 7 games in a row, and I'm just getting hard targeted, getting knocked out consistently because, it's a new game mode and people like targeting YouTubers / streamers because it's funny. So, I may end up playing PvE. I may try it. I may take a platoon in and see how fast we can delete the enemy bots. I think it'll honestly be really, really fun. No joke. And then Jeff Gregg closes out with this. He said, as always, thank you for playing. Give us feedback. Try both PvP and co-op modes. It's going to be interesting when you play co-op because it's not just that there's this new co-op mode. It's going to be on top of new, on top of new. You'll be starting with a whole new set of tanks to acquire that you'll be fighting on a whole new set of maps with brand new consumables for the Cold War era. Feedback across the board is great, but if there's anything specific to co-op, I'd really love to know about it. Oh, and one more detail that I didn't mention before. Minimum install on the game is going to be co-op, so you can play co-op until the game is fully installed. That is huge for those of you guys that have really bad internet or have really long download times. This is big. That means that when the game is playable, when it states the game is playable, or when the little on the left side of the screen, right, when the bar is green and it says this minimum part of the game is playable, that means you can actually access the game. You can actually access the game while the rest of the download is going on in the background. You do have to wait for that minimum part of the game to be downloaded, but I'm a real big fan of that. So I'm taking it that they probably added all the new tanks, all the new consumables, and the co-op mode in the minimum. And then they'll add all of the bonuses, the texture patches, all that kind of stuff at the end, right? So I'm really excited for that. We figured that was the best way to get you into the action right away so you can do co-op before it unlocks everything else. That is huge. I'm a huge fan of that. Nobody wants to wait for a download that takes 14 hours. We don't want another WWE update. We really don't want another WWE update that took, 16 hours? Shoot, I streamed for 8 of those hours. And I literally just talked to my chat. I was literally staring at the screen, waiting for to get in. And it was awful. So I'm glad to see that. Thank you, Jeff Gregg, for answering that. Oh, there is one more portion of here that I wanted to read. Here we go. Matchmaker. This is very, very key, guys. Very, very key. Plus, after 1 minute in the co-op matchmaker, we throw you into a match, even if it's just you and 14 friendly bots against 15 foes. So if you are the only person in queue in co-op mode as a tanker, you're still going to get a match always after 1 minute. That's kind of huge. Because I'm going to be real, guys. Playing anything below a tier 5 in World War II, you're waiting easily 2, 3, 4 minutes for a match. Because there's nobody playing those tanks anymore. So having all right, 1 minute max, cool. You're getting thrown to a match automatically. And it'll take whatever tankers are available, throw them into a match, and then fill the rest with bots. Just like how it was in tier 1, 2, and 3. I'm honestly okay with that. Because there may not be a lot of people playing this new game mode. I don't know. We will see. Probably a lot of people will be playing PvP. I'm probably going to start off with PvP. If I start to get frustrated, I'll move to PvE. I'm going to be streaming a lot of this at twitch.tv/DominiFox. So definitely catch that there. I'm going to be streaming all day on Tuesday when the patch goes out and when it goes live. So when the minimum install is done, I'm going to be playing nothing but PvE. And then once PvP is available for Cold War, I'm going to be playing that. Because, not having to deal with Artie is wonderful. So let me know what you guys think. Are you guys going to be playing co-op mode? Are you guys going to be saying, screw it, I'm going to play PvP instead? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And as always, good hunting. I'll catch you guys next time.